There's a country 90 miles from Florida where the lights are going out for hours at a time. Hospitals are running on whatever fuel they can find. Food is getting harder to move. At one point, airports were so low on fuel, planes couldn't land because they might not be able to take off again. And now Donald Trump is openly saying Cuba could be next. Not next for sanctions, not next for speeches, next. So what is happening in Cuba right now? And why does it suddenly look like one of America's oldest enemies is running out of time? Because Cuba's crisis begins with something incredibly simple: oil. Right now, a lot of countries are worried about oil. Prices rising, supply disruptions, tensions around the Strait of Hormuz. But Cuba isn't just dealing with expensive oil or delayed shipments. For months, it's been dealing with almost none at all. And when a country that runs on imported fuel suddenly loses that supply, everything starts to break at once. Cuba is an island. That matters. Because if fuel doesn't arrive by ship, Cuba can't just replace it overnight. For years, Cuba relied heavily on Venezuela for oil. Venezuela sent cheap fuel. Cuba sent doctors, advisors and support in return. It wasn't perfect, but it kept the lights on. Then America intervened in Venezuela. Maduro was removed. And suddenly, Cuba's main energy lifeline was in Washington's hands. That alone would have been bad. But then the pressure spread. Mexico had also been sending oil to Cuba. But after US threats of penalties against countries supplying Cuba with fuel, those shipments stopped too. So Cuba wasn't just losing one supplier, it was being cut off from the system that kept the island running. And this isn't just sanctions, it's what US officials call a maximum pressure strategy, cutting off fuel, money and access all at once. And this is where the crisis becomes visible. Fuel doesn't just power cars, it powers the country. Power stations need it, hospitals need it, water pumps need it, farm machinery needs it, rubbish trucks need it, tourism needs it. Even food needs fuel, because food has to be grown, refrigerated, transported and sold. So when the oil stops, Cuba doesn't just become poorer, it starts shutting down. In Havana, this means daily life is now built around the blackout. Not around school, not around work, around electricity. In some parts of Havana, electricity only comes on for a few hours a day. So families wait, and when the power finally returns, everything happens at once. Cooking, charging phones, pumping water, because they don't know when it's going off again. And when the power is gone for long enough, the fridge becomes useless. Food spoils, water stops flowing, phones die, and the city starts to feel less like a capital and more like a country waiting for the next thing to fail. And the strange part? Cuba wasn't always like this. Cuba has been poor before. It survived sanctions before. It survived the collapse of the Soviet Union. It survived decades of hostility with the United States. But this is different, because this isn't just economic pressure, this is pressure on the one thing every part of the country depends on: energy. And that's why this matters. This isn't random pressure, it's targeted. Not at the military, not at infrastructure directly, but at the thing that keeps all of it alive. If you want to understand why Cuba is suddenly so important, you have to zoom out. For more than 60 years, Cuba has been the communist government on America's doorstep. A tiny island close enough to Florida that during the Cold War, it became one of the most dangerous places on Earth. The Bay of Pigs, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Soviet alliance, the American embargo. For decades, American presidents tried to weaken the Cuban government, but it never fell. Now, Trump appears to believe the moment has finally arrived. Not because Cuba has become stronger, but because it has become weaker. Its power grid is old, its economy is exhausted, its allies are distracted or limited, and its people are living through a crisis that touches almost every part of daily life. There has been one temporary lifeline. A Russian tanker recently reached Cuba with hundreds of thousands of barrels of oil. For a moment, that helped. Some blackouts eased, some fuel began flowing again, but that didn't solve the problem, it exposed it. Because Cuba doesn't need one tanker, it needs repeated shipments month after month just to keep essential services functioning. One delivery buys time, it does not rebuild an energy system, it does not fix the grid, and it does not change the bigger question: who is actually willing to keep Cuba alive while America is trying to force change? And this is where the story gets dangerous, because Washington's goal is no longer subtle. Trump has talked about Cuba being next. US officials, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, a longtime Cuba hawk, have pushed for political change. Cuba has released prisoners, there have been negotiations, there have been offers of economic opening. But behind all that is a bigger question. Does America want Cuba to reform, or does it want the Cuban government gone? Because those are very different things. Reform means pressure, talks, concessions, maybe a gradual opening. Regime change means forcing the people in charge out of power. And when a superpower puts that kind of pressure on a weak country 90 miles away, the line between negotiation and threat starts to blur. The Cuban government says it will resist, and that matters too. Because Cuba is not Venezuela. In Venezuela, the US removed Maduro, and someone inside the system stepped in. In Cuba, there may not be anyone willing to do that. Its ruling class is older, more ideological, more tied to the military, more tied to the legacy of the revolution. The military doesn't just defend the state, it is deeply connected to the economy itself. So if the Cuban government is pushed too far, it may not simply collapse neatly, it may dig in. And that's where the risk grows. Because governments don't fall just because life becomes difficult. They fall when the people holding the system together decide it's no longer worth saving. That means the real pressure point in Cuba may not be the president. It may be the people around him, the military, the party elite, the security services, the officials who have to decide whether to keep enforcing the system or whether survival means cutting a deal. And no one knows where that line is, not Washington, not Havana, not Moscow, maybe not even the Cuban government itself. And here's the uncertainty, even if the pressure works, no one really knows what comes next. If Cuba opens up, who controls it? If the government falls, what replaces it? If America pushes harder, does Cuba negotiate, or does it resist? And if it resists, does this remain an economic war, or become something more direct? So Cuba is not next because of one Trump quote, it's next because of the pressure that's already happening. The oil is being squeezed, the grid is failing, the economy is buckling, and the people are exhausted. The government is being forced toward a choice. Make a deal, hold out, or risk collapse. Because in the modern world, you don't always need bombs to reshape a country. Sometimes you just turn the power off. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.